Before this video begins, I'd like to say that this is a true story that happened to a girl named Alyssa. This video is made to scare you, but to also bring awareness to what you post online. That being said, let's begin. It was finals week of my first semester at Kent State University in 2011. Naturally, I was creeping on Twitter and doing everything I could to not study for exams. I clicked on a hashtag in a tweet I had posted earlier that day for no apparent reason and was shocked to see the exact text from my tweet posted from another account. The account had my picture and the name Lauren Ashley Cook. At first I thought my computer was switching names and images, that Twitter had a bug, or that I accidentally duplicated my account somehow. It never crossed my mind that someone had made the account with my image on purpose. I clicked on the profile, which had hundreds of tweets and a significant amount of followers. Looking through the account, I could see that all the tweets were copied from my account. The Twitter bio had a link to a Facebook account under the same name, also using my pictures and information. Things got even weirder when I saw that Lauren and her friends were posting on one another's walls. Her friends were using pictures of my friends. Not only did they talk to each other, but the conversations were identical to posts and comments my friend and I had left each other. I called my friends and told them about what I had found. 5 of us gathered around the computer and looked through all the different photos, statuses, and comments on the pages. Finals were the last thing on our minds at this point. Who would do something like that? And, oh my gosh, how did she know that inside joke? Were some of the questions flying around the room. My friends and I were all beyond creeped out. I decided to Google the name, Lauren Ashley Cook. Lauren Ashley Cook had multiple websites using my pictures, and she had created quite a life for herself. She was very social on Facebook and Twitter, but posted dark and depressing things on Tumblr. Lauren would post pictures of my ex-boyfriends and me and post about how much she hated them. Most of her posts were made-up scenarios or stories revolving around one of my photos. One post that stood out most to me was a blog entry about her deceased brother. Lauren posted a photo of an old friend and me. Underneath the photo, she wrote about how much she missed her older brother and how she would see him again one day. The boy in the photo is not my brother, and he is very much alive. Many of her posts revolved around depression and death. As if this wasn't alarming enough, I came across a blog under Lauren's name that had been active since 2007. I was only 14 when this started. How had I not known someone, somewhere, was taking my information and pictures for 5 years? To my knowledge, my social media accounts were private, and only people I approved can view my information. One name popped up on every website, talking to Lauren and comforting her when she was depressed. His name was Mike, and it was very obvious he and Lauren had feelings for each other. Although nervous about what his reaction would be, I reached out to him under my real name. I wrote him a very long Facebook message explaining that Lauren was not real and that someone was taking my pictures. At first, Mike thought I was impersonating Lauren and wanted me to prove I was real before talking to me. He asked me to take a photo holding a sign up that said, "Hi Mike." Once I did this, he messaged me things like, "I can't believe this," and "She lied to me." I told him I was so sorry that someone had done this to him, but I wanted to find out who was behind this and I needed his help. He started telling me all about Lauren. Lauren and Mike had been talking for a year online. "We say I love you to each other. She sends me pictures of herself all the time," he told me. My heart broke for him when I realized how hurt he was. Mike was in his early 20s and lived in New Jersey. He was in the process of launching his own clothing line and loved creating music. "What's Lauren like?" I asked him. He typed me long paragraphs describing Lauren with great detail. She is a freshman at Kent State, She graduated from Medina High School in 2011, and she worked at a nursing home for the last 2 years of high school. She loves ballet and has a little sister and a lot of dogs. As he rattled off more and more facts about Lauren, I realized just how much Lauren knew about me. I was a freshman at Kent State. I graduated from Medina High School in 2011, and I worked at a nursing home in high school. All the things she had told Mike about herself were actually facts about my life. I asked Mike if he could give me the number that she texted him from, and he did. As I typed the number into my phone, the name Creep popped up, and I instantly remembered who it was. Rewind 6 months earlier, it was June of 2011. My friend and I decided to go grab some late night food when I received a text from an odd number. When I opened it, I was taken back to see it was a nude photo of a man in a mirror. Thinking it was someone playing a joke on me, I asked, "Who is this?" The number replied with, "It's your secret crush, gorgeous Alyssa. What are you doing right now?" I decided it was probably one of my goofy guy friends playing around. I ignored the text and put my phone away. The number kept texting me though. The person said things like, "What are you wearing right now?" and "I'd love to hear the noises you make." I kept ignoring them until I couldn't handle the messages anymore. I responded with only, "Leave me alone. If you don't, I will call the police." The person apologized and didn't send any more texts. I saved the number as Creep in my phone in case something ever came up, and that moment had now arrived. I decided to go to the police with a list of more than 20 websites using my pictures and information. I explained the creepy text that this person had been doing since 2007 and that I was genuinely worried about who this person might be. Why would this person send me a picture of a guy in the summer if he or she was pretending to be a girl named Lauren? Why had this person followed me for 5 years? I got goosebumps when I thought about someone I didn't know looking at my pictures and saving them to their own computer every day for so long. I became even more concerned when the officer said there was absolutely nothing anyone could do to stop this person or find out who he or she was. I was told that when it came down to it, I had allowed someone to access my pictures and it was not illegal for that person to take them. I could only pursue the stalker if he or she used my name or threatened me. It didn't matter that Lauren knew everything about me or how long she had been doing this. I was told to stay off the internet and forget about it. Needless to say, I was beyond disturbed and couldn't just forget about this. The websites were so well thought out and detailed, updated every day with new posts. The stalker had pictures from my MySpace account, which was deactivated years ago. I couldn't figure out who would have access to not only my pictures, but my friends' online accounts as well. My friends and I started going through our Facebook friends, picking out anyone who seemed fake. "I think I found the Facebook," one of my friends texted me. It was a profile named Lisa Jones. This person hadn't updated their Facebook in months, but was friends with more than 300 people from my high school. It didn't take long to figure out how she was gaining access to our information. Lisa Jones added hundreds of friends, including us, and we accepted since we had a ton of mutual friends. None of us even thought twice about it. She just logged in and went under the radar by not updating, only using the Facebook account to get our pictures and information. I broke down and decided to text the number myself. I started off with, "You know exactly who I am and I know what you're doing. Take the websites down." The stalker responded. The mood of the text changed from apologetic to angry. The stalker's identity constantly changed. First, the stalker said she was a 16-year-old girl, only to say later that she was a young mother. I was so confused and angry, but I couldn't help but feel sorry for this person. The stalker admitted that he or she had found me on MySpace years ago, then followed me from MySpace to Facebook to Twitter as I created my own accounts. Lauren also managed the 7 Facebook accounts of my friends, admitting that she would duplicate our conversations on their profiles. "You just have the perfect life," the stalker told me. I couldn't believe this person thought I had the perfect life and had been stalking me for 5 years. According to her, she came across my MySpace at random. "It's easier to talk to people using your pictures. I'm not happy with my life at all," Lauren texted me. Something in me felt sorry for this person, but I tried to stand my ground. She agreed to take the websites down, saying she knew it was a problem. "I know what I'm doing is wrong. I need to start focusing on myself," she told me. I was relieved, but I felt she agreed a little too quickly to mean what she said. She proved me right when she deleted the current websites, created new ones, and sent them to Mike, still pretending to be Lauren. She even told Mike that someone was stalking her after I texted her. She had no idea I had been in contact with him. Every time she created a new site, Mike would let me know. I would text her, she would delete the websites, then she would create new ones. It was a never-ending cycle. I was extremely frustrated and angry, but realized I couldn't stop this person from creating websites. The only thing I could do was stop the stalker from having access to my information from now on. I deleted hundreds of friends on Facebook, blocked people on Twitter, and monitored what I posted. After deleting Facebook friends, I received messages from Facebook accounts made hours earlier saying, "Can you please add me? I heard you're the girl that Lauren was pretending to be." I knew it was Lauren trying to gain access to my information again. This went on for weeks. I couldn't believe she wanted to access my information and pictures that badly. Lauren still creates blogs using my pictures. Most of the websites and Facebook accounts have been deactivated, but I'm unsure of how many websites she has that I haven't found. I try not to let it get under my skin. I've accepted that there is nothing I could do to stop her legally, but I want to be proactive. My goal is not to scare anyone out there of using social media, but to help other girls make positive changes in how they use social networks to better protect themselves. If I had known back in 2007 the huge impact social networking would have on our generation, I would have been more selective about adding friends or posting photos. My hope is other girls can read this story and learn from my mistakes. While the show Catfish is truly entertaining, it's a lot more fun to watch than it is to feel like you're living in an episode.
It was the fall of 2007, and I was going into the 10th grade. The girl I had been dating since the summer between 7th and 8th grade had moved away over 2,000 miles from our town, and I wasn't doing well because of it. You know, being an angsty teen who had just lost the love of his life paired with all those super great hormonal imbalances of your high school years. I sort of became withdrawn. Spent less time around friends, less time going out, and sort of just turned to the internet for a lot of my social stuff when I was actually feeling it. Mostly sticking to just playing games on my computer. It wasn't until the summer of 2008 that I had met a girl on a game I was playing at the time. She claimed to be just a little older than me, lived less than 50 miles away, and while she wasn't a 10 out of 10, she wasn't ugly or even average by any stretch. We had a lot of similar interests and similar family situations. I felt really easy around her. I could talk about things that I wouldn't be able to with any of my friends in real life, and I didn't feel the need for the walls I had put up after me and my ex had split up. All that stereotypical bullshit people express when finding a new best friend or significant other. Her name was Kim, and we hit it off well. Spent tons of time together on our game, and I was even introduced to her friends. Not long after getting close, she wanted me to add her on MySpace. I hardly used it, but figured, what the hell, why not? So, I add her, and even a few of the other friends that she had introduced me to. We started talking more on there than in the game. After that, summer ended and school let back in, and Kim eventually asked me on MySpace if I'd be her boyfriend. I was new to the concept of long distance or internet relationships, but I really liked spending time with this girl and wasn't really interested in an in-person deal at the time, so I went for it. Almost immediately, she began to change. Or maybe she was just beginning to show her real self, I don't know. Either way, a week or two after we made our relationship official, she began to send pissy messages to my female friends or family members who she didn't know were related, telling them to back off, keep away from me, that I was hers, etc. I called her out on it, and I got told something along the lines of,
"I just really love you and want them to know you're off limits."
My dumbass teenage brain accepted it and thought that if some guy was getting too close to her that I might do the same. It then stopped for a while and things were fine on that front, but I started getting messages from other girls of various ages and attractiveness, flirting with me out of nowhere. In 1 week, there were maybe 15 different girls, obviously not spam bots, but also totally obvious that they were not different people or who they claimed to be at all. It carried over to the game as well. I asked Kim and her friends if they were pranking me, and they all denied it, saying maybe it was a friend or family member, or even my ex. I just marked all the messages as spam and went about my life. The whole time though, she would treat me like a king. We'd do things on the game together constantly, talk way late into the night, all that stuff you'd expect from a long-distance relationship. Some things fell out of place, but I could put them out of my mind. That was until maybe 2 or 3 months after those messages. Kim started asking me about things that she shouldn't have known about. Things I had discussed with other people outside of her group of friends. Things that I had talked to family about in private messages on MySpace. Even things that I had talked about in real life at school and not online. I didn't think anything of it at first because it started with inconsequential things. Figured maybe she had overheard background conversations during one of our 2 to 4 hour long phone calls. But when it started becoming blatantly obvious that there was no way she'd know details of some private ones, I flipped my shit and asked her what the hell was going on. She, of course, denied everything, said that I had told her or that she had overheard. I didn't believe her and asked her how the fuck she knew about these things when some of them were only said in person to people I knew didn't know her. That was the last night that she spoke to me as Kim. For several months, I was getting texts from different numbers, probably spoofed, emails from throwaway accounts, messages from various fake profiles on MySpace and even on the game. These were messages with personal details that had snippets of discussions I had in private. During that time, I had also noticed messages I had never sent coming from my account. Calling women I knew cunts, whores, sluts, horrible things like that. I immediately put 1 and 1 together and I realized she had my damn password. I don't know how the fuck she got it, but she had access to my account. Everything I had said on there, plans with people, where we were going to meet for school projects, my address to out-of-state family members so that they could send me packages, all sorts of information that I had kept private. She had access to it all. It still didn't explain how she knew about things I had talked about off the internet though, and I was pissed. After running damage control with friends and family, I decided to try and see how the hell she knew these things I didn't talk about online or on the phone. So I set up with a friend from school to meet up somewhere, telling him in real life that I'd send him a message on MySpace with all the details, and to act as if we hadn't talked about it face to face. We set up to meet at the park after dark that Friday night, with him messaging that his brother and his brother's girlfriend would meet us there with beer and pot, and that we should wait for them in the parking lot. He told me what time to meet him there and said that he might be a few minutes late since his bike had a flat and that he'd be walking. The actual plan was for him to intentionally be late and to scope out to see if anyone was following me while I sat there alone playing music on my Zune. Yes, I was one of the few people that had one. Friday night came around and I had made my way to the park around 8 p.m. At about 8:10, I see a car pull up into the other side of the parking lot with its lights off and just sitting there. Based on a small light I saw inside that looked like a phone screen, there was at least a driver and a passenger. I pretended not to notice them and even thought it could be someone else intending on doing what me and my friend had claimed we would be there to do. But even as 8:30 rolled around, no one got out of the car. At 9 p.m., my friend walks up from the sidewalk that ran on the other side of the parking lot, stopping behind the car for just a moment while pretending to tie his shoes, and then walked up to me, saying loudly that his brother had canceled and that he had been called into work. Only a minute or two later, the car pulled out of the parking lot and sped off. My friend tells me that he had watched them follow me up the street, stop at the corner while I made my way to where I was going to wait, and then followed me in after a few minutes. He had taken down the license plate number and type of car when he pretended to tie his shoe, and he was saying that we should go to the cops. Being dumb, I told him I'd handle it myself. We left, grabbed pizza, and headed back to my place. That night, I changed my passwords and then sent the license plate number to every one of the accounts that had recently messaged me, telling them I knew who they were and to fuck off. In return, I got a message back from one of them telling me what I had wore that night and that they would, quote, see me again soon. After a week of texts telling me various things about me, I finally told my parents, who then called the cops. I gave them all the information that I had and was told that they would contact me if anything came up. While I never heard from Kim again or even the hordes of fake profiles, the cops never called. And when I called them, they would always say that they had nothing to report. I don't know if everything had scared her off or if she just found another target. What creeps me out to this day, though, is that my friend had told me when he looked inside the windows, he hadn't seen any younger girls in that car. Just what looked like to be two very ugly looking women at least in their late 30s. I don't know what they intended, if it was just stalking or if they had other things planned. But from that day on, I was a lot more careful with anyone who I met online. For some background information, I was a 16-year-old male high school student at the time of these events taking place. I'm not very outgoing, and due to some social anxiety and frequent mini panic attacks at school, I was fairly bad at making new friends and talking to people. This is all relevant information because the story I'm about to tell you happened precisely because I had such low self-esteem. I had just recently gotten out of a relationship of 2 weeks with my ex-girlfriend. She had broken up with me right after I had returned from my uncle's funeral, and I later learned from friends that she had cheated on me with one of my good friends on the weekend that I went to the funeral. Yeah, thanks for respecting the bro code, dude. I was very insecure due to being cheated on, and I was at an all-time low, thinking that there must have been something wrong with me. Due to being such a socially deprived teen, I always took solace in the internet and the various technology I had at my disposal. Surfing the web was one of my favorite pastimes. One day, while doing my usual obligatory Facebook check, I had noticed I had gotten a new friend request. This came across as very odd to me because I never get new friend requests outside of my circle of friends that I knew from elementary school. The person who had sent the request was a very lovely older girl. She appeared to be around 20, but her profile said she was actually 19. I didn't know this girl at all, and I know some of you will judge me for deciding to add her, but I was going through a very depressive state of mind at the time. Anyways, let's just call her Kate. Kate was always tons of fun to talk to. We would talk about the most nonsensical things and just have a complete ball. She had told me a decent amount about herself, where she lived, what college she was attending, what major she was going for, things like that. Honestly, at the time I was just so psyched that such an attractive older girl had been speaking to me on such casual terms that I sorta just tuned out most of the intricate details. Kate and I had been speaking for roughly a week or two before she asked me if I had Skype. I told her that I did, in fact, have a Skype account, and of course I added her to it. One day, she turned her webcam on, and what I saw absolutely floored me. She was partially naked in her bed, giving me all sorts of alluring gestures, and beforehand had typed out that she also wanted to see me on webcam. I did as requested and got on webcam. This was partially funny because at the time I had considered putting on my scream mask to cover up my face as a joke. In retrospect, I should have gone ahead with that plan at the very least. Once I was on cam, she started typing again telling me she wanted me to touch myself. I'm very timid when it comes to the subject of masturbation, but since she seemed to take an interest in me, I didn't want to lose her attention. So I did as she asked and I began to touch myself on cam. Not even 10 seconds after I did this, her webcam immediately cut off and faded to a blank black screen, with Skype saying that the call had been disconnected. At first, I didn't really think much of this since my parents had a very shoddy provider and the internet cut out pretty often. But then Kate began to start typing again. The following text is around what she typed. After listing out all my family and friends by name, she then said, "If you don't send me money for my tuition next semester, I'm going to leak this video to all of your friends and family on your Facebook account." It took me a few moments for my mind to process what had just happened. This person had put a pre-recorded video of a half-naked woman and lured me into masturbating on camera, just so that they could blackmail me and extort money out of me to pay for their college tuition. By this point, all of my parents' advice for being careful on the internet is flashing through my mind, and I'm slapping my palm furiously against my forehead, wondering how I could have been so foolish. Luckily, in my panic, I was still in a rational enough mind to tell my dad about the scenario, and after grilling me about being disobedient, he marched up to my room and got onto my computer. I don't know what all he and this would-be blackmailer said to one another, but I do know that he pulled out his cell phone and called the authorities on this matter. Afterwards, he had told this person that blackmail was illegal and that he had told the cops about their little scheme. The person immediately logged off and deleted me as a Skype contact. My dad had kept the call and all history of the conversation on my Skype account in case we needed to present it as evidence in an inevitable court case. The unfortunate thing is, the cops could never find out anything about this person. Hell, I don't even know if I really helped matters when I couldn't tell them if the perpetrator was a man or a woman, because, to be honest, I didn't know. All I could tell them was the information that Kate had told me. So the chase pretty much got nowhere. I had deleted and remade my Facebook account in this time frame and never got another contact from Kate ever again. The moral of the story is this: be very careful online. You never know when someone is willing to take advantage of you and use your low self-esteem against you. And this goes for everyone. It's not just girls. After all, I was a victim too. Hello friends, hope you enjoyed the video. Just wanted to give you some information regarding what happened in the second story. What happened in the second story happens very often and should be something you're aware of and careful about. This kind of stuff doesn't just happen to people who frequently show themselves nude on cam. What happened in that story is a very common method of blackmail called e-whoring, or at least some type of e-whoring. E-whoring is basically when you pretend to be a girl online using clips and pictures of somebody else, often cam girls and such. The people pretending to be this person seek out vulnerable or thirsty guys on forums, chat rooms, games, stuff like that. They usually just convince them to send them money in exchange for nude photos of them, but sometimes they have worse intentions, which is where the blackmailing comes in. They'll use your email and other information you've given them in order to find things like your Facebook. They will then often do exactly what happened in the second story. Get you to do something embarrassing on cam and then threaten to send it to everyone you know unless you give them money. Or in other cases, if their target is married or something, they will threaten to send chat logs to their significant other. So guys, please be careful when showing yourself to anyone on the internet. It could be dangerous. And also, I would make sure your webcam is completely covered when you're not using it. There are even some people out there who can gain access to your webcam without you knowing it and turn it on when you're not aware of it. And then, once again, proceed to blackmail you or post pictures of you online. That actually happened to a close female friend of mine. There are, unfortunately, entire communities online dedicated to doing these things to people. Lastly, in most cyberstalking situations, the police will be of little to no help. They don't ever really pursue things like this, and these stories are a good example of that. So the best way to avoid it is to just be aware of it and prevent it from happening. Anyways, that's about it. Once again, hope you enjoyed the video and maybe learned something new. If you did or want to get it out there, please give this video a like. Stay safe and have an awesome day. Follow me on Twitter. My boyfriend and I share an apartment in London with our dog, which is a husky. My boyfriend is in the film and television industry and used to work from home most of the time, so he would generally look after the dog during the day while I was at work. Take him for walks, keep him company, stuff like that. However, recently my boyfriend was given a new job opportunity in the center of London, much higher pay and much more related to what he actually wanted to be doing. But obviously this meant that he would be out of the house more often, so we had to change our schedule for walking the dog and stuff like that. We decided on alternating days since this seemed fair. So 2 or 3 mornings a week, I would now get up early before I had to be ready for work and I would walk the dog. Now, I'm really slow when it comes to getting ready in the morning, so I had to get up super early on my days to walk him, usually around 5 or 5:30 a.m. I would walk around for 15 minutes to the park near our apartment and let him off the leash in a large field-type area that was enclosed by tall hedges on all sides so that he could run around. This one particular morning, back in November of 2015, something happened that scared me more than anything I can think of. With it being close to winter, it was still very much dark out when I left at that hour of the morning. It was cold and had been raining quite heavily during the night, so everything was wet and still stank of damp. I was groggy, as usual, and not wanting to be there at all. The park creeped me out at the best of times. It was dark and always deserted at this time. There were streetlights, but they're sparse and that old kind that gives off that dull yellow light that just makes everything look even creepier. The enclosed area where I let my dog off is usually pretty dark because there are no streetlights actually in the space itself, as there's one at the entrance gate and one on the other side. I should say that there was a small side road running along one side of the field with a row of garages that I think belong to the apartment buildings just behind them. It also isn't the nicest area. The park itself is nice, but you do get the occasional drunk passing through. They wander through the park to find somewhere quiet to drink more or just go to sleep. Thinking about it, I probably should have never gone there alone in the dark, but the dog needed a walk and there wasn't anywhere else close by. Plus, I figured that it was morning, not late at night, so who's going to be out mugging people at that time in the morning? Anyway, back to the story. I had let the dog off and he had run to the far end of the field to go sniff around and do dog stuff, I guess. I stayed as much as I could at the better lit end of the field, but after a few minutes I decided to follow him to make sure that he wasn't eating stuff off the ground or something like that. He's mostly white, so I could still make out the vague shape of him moving around in the darkness. As I approached the darker end of the field, that's when I heard it. It sounded like somebody coughing or retching, like they were throwing up violently. I turned around quickly and scanned the field. No one was in the enclosed area itself, but just over the hedges at the far end, I spotted the silhouette of a man's head and shoulders, illuminated in the light from the street lamp. He was standing on the side of the field with the garages, one hand up against the wall, head down and obviously being sick. I could tell it was a guy from the sounds he was making. I figured he was just drunk, probably didn't even know I was there, and just carried on with what I was doing. Still, I was a little uncomfortable with him being there and hoped he would just leave soon. Man, was I wrong. A minute or so passed and I began to hear him mumbling to himself indistinctly. I chanced another look over at him, and this is when I began to get kind of freaked out. I had to quietly move a little closer towards him in order to verify I was actually seeing what I thought I was seeing. He had vomited down the wall and onto the floor and was now proceeding to scoop up what he could of the vomit with his bare hands and wipe it all over his body, his face, and his hair. He did this all while mumbling to himself and chuckling occasionally. This guy was clearly not all there. I decided that it was time to go. I turned my back on the man and called for my dog to come to me. This was a big mistake. I began walking towards my dog, all while calling him and looking back to keep an eye on the crazy man. I stopped in my tracks when I realized that he had now turned to face me. He was reasonably far away and I could only see his head and part of his torso over the hedge. But the street lamp made it clear that he was definitely facing me. He knew that I was there. I froze momentarily, paralyzed with a sudden panic in the pit of my stomach. and then snapped myself out of it. I grabbed my dog, who had wandered over to me and was sniffing around my feet, and put him back on the leash and made a beeline for the gate. I looked back over to the other side and was relieved for a moment because I could no longer see the man. My relief was short-lived though, when I realized that he had not gone away, but had just moved out of the light a little and was now crouched down slightly behind the hedge. I could still hear him mumbling though, and I'm fairly certain he was still watching me. I was almost at the gate when I began hearing him rustling through the bushes, so let me try and paint a picture of where he was in relation to me. Imagine a square. The gate is in the top left corner and he was in the hedges at the top right corner. I reached the gate and began fumbling with the sliding locks. Suddenly, the rustling stops, and with dread in my heart, I look over to see why. I really wish I hadn't done that. I wish I had just opened the gate and walked quickly in the opposite direction. He was now standing in the field with me. I couldn't see his face as he was in near complete darkness, but I could see his body outlined in the light from the street lamp. He looked tall and thin. He was breathing heavily and still mumbling to himself. Once again, I was momentarily unable to move out of fear, but only for a second. I bolted, and to my horror, so did the man. This creep set off at a terrifying speed towards me. I slammed the lock on the gate open and dragged myself and the dog through, throwing it shut with a crash after me.